Hello, my friends. It's Jackie Rose, Grieving Moms Finding Hope. My friend and partner in crime here, Lisa Didden, and she is back. She's always just living like, well, am I coming on or am I not coming on? What's happening? So, welcome to Hope After the Landslide. I am welcoming all of you that are here for the very first time, and prayers to you and your family if you guys are going through the loss of a child. And thank you to those of you that have been watching us for many years now. We've
Mm.
been doing this broadcast for at least 7 or 8 years and almost consistently, right, Lise?
Well, yeah, for me, it's been, well, the co-host here for about a year now, I guess. I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
But you've been on for many years, so.
Many years just bringing a lot of special guests that
Mhm.
people to help to encourage you, and that's why
Right,
we're here.
for
We really
sure.
want you guys to know that you're not alone. Hi, Debbie. Thank you for being here. So, our topic that we've been, discussing this month of October is called "Held in Darkness," and I guess Lisa, I will let you just come in here and tell me what your thoughts were on that
Well,
sentence.
it's interesting because when we first talked about this and you had said, let's talk about the darkness, or we discussed that, and then you said, let's call it held in darkness. And so it has kind of a double meaning. And I was thinking, oh my gosh, does she mean being held down by darkness, or does she mean being held and comforted in darkness? So but the reality of that is that, the darkness is there and that Jesus is holding us in it. And I think, there's a song, and I believe, oh,
Just
uh,
sing it.
Grant, it's something with the being to be held,
Oh yeah, just be held,
just
casting crowns,
just
I
be
think.
held. No, I think it's Grant. What's her first name? I don't remember her first name, but
Well,
anyway, but it's one
either
of
way.
one of the songs. But it's being held, and so it's comforting to know that in that pain, in that moment, that you are being held. You
Well,
know.
interesting that you were to pull in that perspective because,
Mm,
of course, we're talking about the darkness, right?
mm.
And that it's times that we don't want to be in the darkness, we want to be in the light.
Amy Grant. Debbie told me Amy
Are
Grant.
you sure she's the
It's not, no, it's
original?
not Amy Grant, it's the other Grant, but go ahead.
Well,
Sorry,
but anyway, so
gonna
I
Google it.
I was thinking, yeah, the enemy would try to come in and try to distort even that sentence
Right.
because you're not held down in it doesn't say held down in darkness, it's saying you're being held in let's just say in the arms of Jesus in that. But I do appreciate the perspective because there may be somebody else
It
out
is
here that's thinking that.
it is
So,
Casting Crowns does do it, so sorry. Anyway, Natalie, it could be Natalie as well, thank you,
but for
Rochelle. My
sure it's
friends are,
casting crowns
you
because it's
know,
one of my favorite.
it's Grief Brain, I forget, but but that song, when you hear, and you had said early on, to listen to Christian music, and there is so many messages in that about not being held. So that's just
Yeah,
one of them. Yeah.
yeah. Well, welcome to Kathy and Rosemary and Karen and hi, Rochelle.
Mm.
She's putting in here.
I know
Okay, we're
she's.
dropping the name of the song in the title. Okay, we go
That's
down.
all right. People may remember, given
I'm
our
pretty confident
conversation.
Casting Crowns is the most recent, so
Yeah, yeah.
just go with that. Okay, so we in this series, Held in Darkness,
Right.
the big thing we were talking about is the difference between knowing if you're sad or if you're depressed, right? Going on
Mhm,
and on. Hi, Christy. And so this episode that we're talking about is when hope whispers.
mhm.
So God is primarily going to have moments of where he's going to whisper. He's going to have times where he's going to give us a vision. He's going to have times where he's going to hear us cry, as well as when he's going to call us by our name. So we're going to hit on all of these right now. And so I want to
Right.
start with the most prominent story in the Bible where Elijah receives a gentle whisper, and he was on Mount Sinai. Now, most of you know that Mount Sinai is very significant biblically
Mhm.
because that's where, Moses saw the burning bush when he was hearing God say, I am. That is where he received the 10 Commandments. And as well, this is where Elijah heard his whisper. Now, Elijah's situation was, hi, Linda, was that, he was probably looking for some big ta-da message, like broadcasted,
Right.
big stadium sound at a church, at a wherever it was. But yet in that moment, it says, and after the earthquake came a fire, but the Lord was not in the fire. and after the fire came a gentle whisper. This is 1 Kings 19:11 through 13. It's a good story to read.
Mm.
So it says that after Elijah fled in despair, expecting God's power to appear in these grand signs, God instead met him in a gentle whisper, a quiet, intimate reminder that hope and presence aren't always loud and dramatic.
Mm.
This is one of the most direct examples of God literally whispering his hope. And so, in the midst of your sadness and your darkness and your depression,
Right.
just realize that, there's times where you're really quiet and when you're in this place, you don't really want to be quiet because that's when the voices come in. That's when the enemy potentially can try to compete with God and whisper things to you that you don't want to hear. And yet, if we're in the word, if we're listening to praise and worship music, we can then make the enemy flee and
Mhm.
then allow God's still small whisper to come into our hearts. And so I'm going to share, and then Lisa's going to share a time
Mhm.
when we heard a whisper from God. Now, this doesn't happen, and this has not happened only one time in my life.
Hmm.
And this was 2 years prior to Randy's passing, and I was on a trip with my dad and my sister and my, dad's girlfriend. It was a beautiful trip. We toured around into Germany and all the places, and my dad being a musician, he wanted to go to Slovenia because he does play the accordion,
Hmm.
and he wanted to go where other famous accordion players were, but nonetheless, Slovenia is absolutely gorgeous.
No
It's
kidding.
gorgeous. Yeah,
Mm.
and there's a place called Bled, Slovenia, and so we went there to hike in this gorge. Now, granted, it wasn't an easy hike, but my dad and his girlfriend did it, and that was back in 2014. So
Mm.
we're talking about what, 12 or so years ago. And so when I was there, I was a little bit, I guess my level of adventure is a little bit more accelerated than my dad's and probably my sister, and so when we got towards the end, there was this little, like, gradual hill to go up to where I could see more of the area. I wanted to see above the gorge, and they're like, "Go ahead, we just need to sit and rest," and so I went up there, and as I sat there, I literally was removed from all the noise, and I could hear the wind just blowing through the pine trees. And
Mm.
it always reminds me when I'm outside of the Holy Spirit. And in that moment, I was hearing these words, but they weren't clear. And so when I got back, I immediately wrote down what I can recall that God was saying to me. And I didn't discover the connection until months and months later after Randy died
Hmm.
because I was too busy with taking care of the kids. So bear with me because it's deep. It's called I call it the prophetic landslide thoughts in Europe.
Hmm.
And so basically I did write some stuff up there. I said I'm absorbing all of this and feeling free to explore parts of my soul that remain dormant much of my highly demanding life. I realize it is a vacation, or am I a vessel that has been refurbished back to be prepared for battle?
Hmm.
Alpine breezes that whisper messages of the Holy Spirit, and scenery that drops you to your knees in reverence to God above. I'm humbled beyond my understanding as I'm experiencing the pure sense of all that He has as good. And then I hear, Jackie, thank you for seeking my will and loving me enough to accept my discipline. Here, take this trip as my love and be ready for what's to come.
Hmm.
Oh, and Jackie, trust me, this mountain you must climb will have crevasses before you can get atop the mountain.
Wow.
I still get chills when I hear that, and I have on here October 2014.
So to remember that you wrote it down right after?
And well, the first part I wrote down because I had a backpack and I always take a journal with me. So I wrote the first part, and then I remembered like what I heard, and I was like thinking to myself, "Well, wait a minute. In 2004 is when I experienced my friend's mountain lion attack, and I thought that was the worst of the worst." And then I'm thinking, "What is this?" But
Wow.
put it aside. Again, didn't pick it up. Now talk about God's whisper, you guys. Like
Hmm.
it could make me cry,
Mm.
but he knew what was about to happen. He knew this huge landslide was about to happen, and yet it was almost as though when I looked at this later after the fact, I realized, like you said earlier, Lisa, was I was being held the
Wow.
whole time because he knew this was gonna happen.
Mm.
And so you guys have to remember that you miss God's wisdom and his sometimes, like, just even things where you're saying, "Well, I don't know what to do in my life. I want a purpose and all that," and yet we're just never quiet enough to hear. So if you are in a place of sadness or you know that you've been clinically depressed, even if you have to sit with a friend or at least I already talk about the high it's so important to me to get outside.
Mm.
That's where you're going to hear those messages. So that was my time.
No, that's for sure. I mean, that's unbelievable that you heard so clearly that message. Now, for my whispers, for me, after Christopher passed, and even well before that, with my faith being very strong throughout my life, that um, you know, you you've always said too to live expectantly, which is very interesting. I love that term because when I hear that message now, I'm thinking to myself, where did that come from? But now I know where it came from, because that is that voice. And if you're hearing, and our minds, and I had this conversation with a friend recently, that when we go through catastrophic loss, as losing a child, as we all have, our mind is trying to rationalize, and the woulda coulda shouldas come up, and uh, Jackie has said many times, if it's the negativity, it's not from God, it's not from Jesus,
Right.
that is the darkness. So to turn that off, turn that
Mhm.
channel, and say no, and then turn it around and try to live expectantly in the quiet. Now, when Chris passed, um, I got a job and I was working as a florist. Well, not a florist. I was delivering flowers.
And it was so incredible to me that he brought you that.
Yeah, well, and
Really?
it was amazing because if I had retired a year or two before, and I thought to myself, would be a fun job, and this job came up, and the side of the truck said delivering, what was it? Delivering joy, or delivering, I forget
Yes,
what
and
it
I thought
was.
you were gonna remember it because I can't
I can't
remember.
remember exactly. Delivering happiness. I don't know. It was something, and I thought to myself, "Well, that's nice. I want to deliver happiness, or I want to deliver joy," and I was deliver flowers. But I was driving around one day, and and I stopped at a light, and there was this tree, and I had gone all through Princeton, which is beautiful, and it was fall. I had gotten the job in September, October, right about this time, and I looked up at this tree, and one side of the tree was all like burnt and kind of like all orangey, and the other side was all green, where you could see where the sun was. And I heard very clearly, there's two sides to everything, and find me in it.
Mm.
And I thought to myself, and
Bada bang.
I got chills, like, thinking about it, and I thought, "What was that?" And then I realized that was really him saying,
That's amazing.
"Look at this and our world." And so, again, getting outside and being, and so is that a whisper? Yeah, for me, that was a signal, and I
Oh,
drove around all day
100%.
thinking to myself, try to find,
Yeah.
that my comfort, God's comfort in all of this, because
I love that. You know what? You never even told me that.
no, I never shared that. But I should write these things down, because I could clearly see that tree, and I thought to myself, wow, and that was just, one of the things. But I've always, and this is funny, not funny, but I had given my testimony years back in my church, with my life and stuff that had happened, and in every paragraph I wrote, and I listened for God's whisper,
Hmm.
and this is what he said, and I try to imagine. So, and there's that as well, and I think also, and we're going to talk about it, but I think that he whispers it to us, but then I think in pain, I just read this somewhere, that in pain God shouts. Sometimes, that's his opportunity, if you're willing to listen to
Yeah.
that. So,
Yeah. It's
you
so
know
true.
so yeah.
I want to take a moment to let's see, catch up here to I think it's Christy and Tracy, Linda, Iris. Hi, Iris. Thank you guys for being here, and thank you guys already. The ones that are have been on before. You know
Yeah.
that I'm going to encourage you to put on your child's name in the comments and where you're viewing. the broadcast from. So now we also have a place
Mhm.
where God gives us this vision. And I had a hard time with this because, well, of course, I was trying to think about my entire life and all the
Mm.
beautiful things I've seen with my eyes. And like right now, I'm looking out at the Cascade Mountains, the Three Sisters Mountains, and it's like there's a silhouette. It's like I've been blessed with things that I have seen where I'm just like, there is eye candy everywhere, especially when you're in Europe. But God also speaks through vision. And in this one, do you know the story in Ezekiel 37, 1 through 14, which is the valley of the dry bones? And in this place, it is whereas Elijah, we're talking about when the Jews were held in captivity. And God did not whisper to Ezekiel in the literal sense of a gentle voice like he did with Elijah in First Kings.
Mhm.
Instead, he spoke to him through a vision, a vivid, powerful, and symbolic rather than the quiet whisper. And obviously, it was all these dry bones. There's even a song that is about that. And so I was thinking about vision, vision, vision. And actually then I stopped and I thought, I was telling Lisa, I go, well, I am a visionary. And so I when I see something and I'm working on something, I'm like, oh, we could do this with it and do this with it, and poor Stacy and everybody else that is working alongside me, and they're like, wait a minute, just one thing at a time, but I think it's sometimes you get these downloads and then
Yeah.
you have to come and check, because like even with Ezekiel and there, being with these dry bones, which is such a crazy story, and how he just turned that whole thing about breathing life into these bones and saying he was going to restore the temple and he was going to restore, the Jews in captivity. But yeah, I haven't had a burning bush moment. Haven't had that, but I will just go with I am a visionary. But how many times though have you just, uh, maybe you even had a vision, of your son or your daughter, being there with Jesus, and you thought, oh, where did that come from? And God does give you these moments so that you can just be at peace as to knowing where they are.
Yeah, I'd love to see. I read once that heaven is seeing and doing all your favorite things. So I can just envision my son on a beach and, playing basketball and making every shot. So when I envision him, I try to think of all the good. You know, I don't think I've had an actual vision. I've asked for one. I read about people that have had visions and you see them in the Bible all the time. And I think to
Uh-huh.
myself, please, God, can I have a pure vision? But I think that we find our visions like the tree. I mean, it's kind of a mixed metaphor there, mixed
Yeah.
thing that I had seen. But when I stopped and looked at it, and I heard very clearly that message that, look for me.
Hmm.
And so again, living expectantly and looking for him and not looking to the darkness and knowing that he's holding me. And so when I think back to those early days, and anyone who's in the early days, and say hi to Tammy and Tracy and Tammy, two Tammys, that and I know they're in the early parts of their grief because they've come to the open house as well. But
Hmm.
that
I'm so glad you guys are here.
Yeah, I'm glad you're here too. Hopefully, we could share some light, shed some light on some of these things. But to the vision of just knowing that they're encompassed in love and that I'm being held. Oh, I was going to say, when I look back in the early days, and I think to myself, how did I get through that? Well, he did. He
Hmm.
carried you. Like, so
Hmm.
I look back and that vision of, and I can remember thinking, how does a shattered heart still beat? Like God still
Yeah.
allows it to beat, and you continue to just do the next right thing. And yeah, one step at a time.
Well, and I think when a lot of people say, "I just don't hear God in the middle of this
Right.
place that I'm at, and this sadness," and this is why we are providing you just as a reminder that it's not, again, always going to be this loud,
Right.
audible voice, or this is not going to be, like everybody looks for a hummingbird, like, "Oh Lord, if this is
Mhm.
supposed to happen," no, we just need to slow down. And in the midst of your grief, it's hard to, because we're very we've got a lot of anxiety and hyperarousal going on, and it's really hard. I remember
Right.
having a lot of anxiety during the mountain lion attack time, and I remember that my body was racing a marathon on the inside,
Mm.
and it was really hard for me to slow down enough. So that's why there's so many things out there to where, if I can't sleep at night, I will listen to, these audible things on my phone. It'll tell a story, a Bible story or something. But there's so many places where you can just sit outside if you're into the mountains, the beach, whatever, but just sit there and just stare out and just, don't again look for the burning bush moment. Just start talking to God. And it's amazing. People go, oh, okay, well, I've got 15 minutes for you, God. Okay, bring it on. No, it doesn't work like that. And you could be in the middle of the produce section and you could be looking at something and then all of a sudden he's gonna give you a message. So it's just not going to happen the way sometimes that you think it's going to.
No, and I think that our whole universe is just turned, like you think of life now, it was I do anyway, before and the after. I think about things and I think, "Oh, well, that was before he died," or there's a
Yeah.
before and after. And then, I think to myself, well, in those early days, like, well, life kept going on and my my hair was growing and my fingernails, things were happening and I'm like, life is continuing. And so I have to kind of like just hang on, and just hang
But you
on.
wish the world would stop.
Well, you
Y
do,
Yeah,
because you feel like everything has stopped.
yeah.
It
Like,
really
you look
and
outside, I remember looking and saying, "How are these people still doing all
right.
of these things? Like, that's not okay."
How is everybody going to work and everything? Why is the world still going on? And that, and so to look and to not be hard on yourself, just that if you're
Mhm.
in that place, like we say, like if you need a break, you take a break, but don't make it, you know,
Yeah.
too long. But yeah, for
Well,
sure.
I mean, it'd be nice if you could have as much time. Hi, Jill, as much time as you really would w and I guess a lot of times in grief, uh
Yeah.
when you do have that time because you're not really motivated to do a whole lot.
No.
So, like, yeah, like Lisa said, God does scream in our pain sometimes. He'll yell out. That's the time whenever we need him the most.
Well, and I think that if you are thinking, and so the screaming comes from two angles, and so being held in darkness can have that double meaning, of don't hold me in the darkness. I don't want to. I don't want to do the woulda, coulda, shouldas, and I'm to blame or anything like that, because it is what it is, as hard
Right.
as it is, and God has us. That's the hard part. Sorry for the loss. Yeah, Jill, saying for Karen and Debbie, very recent losses. So,
By the way, because it's driving me crazy,
yeah.
I'm sitting here looking because I of that floral place that you worked at.
Yeah, because they're out of they retired now, so I'll find it.
Oh, they did?
Yeah, they retired.
Oh, okay. Well,
So,
anyway, because
we
it
will
is such
find it.
a I think that was a beautiful gift, Lisa, that God actually gave you was because I remember I you even sent me a plant during that time. It'll be, that my first peace lily that you gave me, and I remember that you told me, and I'm like, what a picture of God's love that He put you in a place because you're delivering happiness to people despite the fact that you were so sad.
Well, and you say you walk through a valley of tears or whatever, but I felt like every day I was just getting out and doing that, and I'd be crying in the car, doing my thing, and then handing them flowers and thinking life. And there's a huge representation that life goes on, and that there
How
is
did you
beauty.
just as a side note, how did you
Find that.
turn that off when you would walk up to the door? Did
So I would just take a deep breath, wipe my tears and hand it. And inevitably, everyone always asked, "Who's it from?" And I never read the card. I wasn't going to read the card, so I would always say, "Somebody loves you," and I'd walk away and say,
Oh,
and I would just take a deep breath and think, and there is love still in the world, and people are
right.
still moving on, and babies are being born, and people are getting married, and life goes on. Who am I delivering flowers to?
Mhm.
I'm delivering it people who have passed, to the families, to all the different happy events, marriages and stuff.
Well, but also on the flip side, I'm
Yeah.
sure you're also delivering flowers for people that had just lost someone,
Well,
right?
that's for sure. And then one
Yeah.
time when I brought him to the church and tripped down the altar with the whole flower bouquet, that was a whole nother story. But the funny part about that was there were 3 people sitting, just a side note, if you know me. Um, there were 3 people sitting in the back praying, they never looked up. I fell, the flowers went flying, I picked them up, put them all back real nice. But anyway, God had me there.
See, this is
Very
where,
funny.
oh my goodness, like, okay, thank you so much for who wait, where okay, hold on a second, Lisa, you
Sorry for
just
the side note
no,
there.
no, 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 no
But you
apology
know
for
what's
making
funny
anybody
about that
laugh.
is that so I'd be teary-eyed or whatever, but I could laugh at the silly things still, like, "Oh, this
Well,
is"
at
you
some
laugh for
point,
yourself.
these ladies, when we're on here, we're gonna tell them the other story that makes everybody laugh.
Mm,
Okay, so I
mm,
have I want oh, look at Lynn. Lynn said
yeah.
2 of my favorite women. We love you, Lynn. Thank you so much, friend. Um, let's see. I got, your son Kathy,
Yeah.
my son Joshua has been spiraling out of control for the last year of his life. After a few weeks before he passed, my husband and I were walking our dog on the beautiful rail trail. He clearly heard my contact. Finish, Lisa.
Oh, I'm sorry. I clearly heard God tell me to prepare myself as I was going to lose my son. Oh my goodness. I became visibly upset, and my husband wasn't even sure what to say other than everything is going to be okay. My son loved the Lord, and I do find some peace
Hmm.
knowing that he is no longer in pain or suffering. God is my refuge and strength. God bless you, Kathy. That's beautiful. And that no one wants to hear that message, I'm sure, and he prepared you. So,
Mm.
for
Yeah.
you to know that he's no longer suffering should give you a measure of peace for sure. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I
As
think
hard as
all
it
of
is
our
to
kids
say.
that with mental illness or drug addiction or even, anything that they were suffering from in this world, is they're whole again and they're
Yeah.
healthy again.
Yeah. I mean, oh, yeah, the subject of mental illness,
Are
of
you
things going on in this
are,
world.
are you
Ooh.
okay with your eye?
Yeah, for some reason, I think when I was looking down, it just,
Oh,
sometimes they get dry and it got caught.
okay.
My contact was like,
I didn't even know you had contacts. See, I'm learning new
yeah.
things every
Well,
day.
yeah. Anyway, yes, of course. I'm old. I have to have something. I switch back and forth. Okay. Okay, how about the still small comfort to Hagar? You
Mm,
guys know the story about Hagar, right? Hagar was the Egyptian servant of Sarah and Abraham, just to give you the background story. And then Sarah couldn't have any children. And so basically ended up having a son with Abraham. And then years later, Sarah then gets jealous of Ishmael and then basically sends Hagar and Ishmael out in the desert and they run out of water. And in
hmm,
this situation, and we can all relate to this, but God hears the boys' cries. Sometimes
mm,
we just have to cry, and God says, "Do not be afraid." God has heard the boy crying. Then God opened her eyes, and she saw a well of water, a tender moment of God's compassion and provision when all seemed lost.
mm,
Um, I probably wouldn't even have enough time to share all the moments that I have cried out to God, not just months later after Randy, but I mean, it continues on. There's things of fallout with the family and new items that have come up, and God does count our tears. He
mhm,
knows every one of them. And I would say the time that I remembered most when I cried out to God was I ended up getting a hold of Randy's autopsy, which, if
mm,
most of you know, Randy was hit uh, intentionally. He walked out into traffic after a tragic situation because he just lost all hope and he was killed by trucks on a highway. So it wasn't pretty. I just really wanted to read the autopsy. I wanted to go to
mm,
one particular page that talked about if he had any kind of drugs or any kind of an influence, but Randy was never did that stuff. Randy was very healthy. He was a believer in
mm,
God. He treasured he protected the temple of the Holy Spirit. But I just wanted to know that. And then I ended up on the page that was full describing the road, and I don't need to say anything else. And I just
mm,
remember that it was I went in the bathroom because Larry had told me not to read it. I went in the bathroom and I grabbed my bath towel and I just wailed. There's a difference between crying and wailing and just lamenting because I was like, no mother should have to read what happened in this capacity to their son. And I just remember that in that
Mm.
moment, I got a text message from one of Marseille's friends
Hmm.
who was in Cheyenne, and they were very helpful with the whole landslide when we were in Cheyenne.
Mm.
And I just instantly called her. And I
Mm.
just started bawling, and she just prayed with me and listened to me. I mean, of all of the people, like,
Yeah.
like, I had just really met her, when I arrived there at the scene and everything was happening, and yet God heard my cry, and he brought someone to me that was gonna be able to comfort me in that
Mm.
horrible moment. And I'm sure all of you guys that are watching here have had these times where you you just cried out to God because you had nothing else. And that, you guys, is a prayer to
Mm.
Jesus. When you're crying out to Jesus, say, I can't do this anymore. Like he hears your cry, just like he heard Hagar and Ishmael out in the desert.
Mm. Oh, absolutely. And for me, I mean, crying out, I cried out in a lot of anger at first, like what, and it was a lot of just angst. I don't know if it's anger, hurt, pain, all of it in once. But God, please help me with, what do I do with this? How
Mm,
do I deal with this? And for me, it was finding this ministry. To be honest, was, God, how do moms get through this? Not to
mm,
sound cliche, but please lead me to some hope. Please lead me to something. And then probably within a few days, I found Grieving Moms Finding Hope, as crazy as that sounds. But
mm.
and it was just, I was seeking, like, please, guide me into something that's going to nourish my soul, something that's going to.
I'm so grateful that he did that.
I am too. So, but no, but it's true. And because there were all these different avenues, there's a lot of support out there, but
There
I
is.
wanted to find specific to moms and finding hope, because I didn't want to hear that things were downtrodden and the rest of your life is, I mean, things are going to change. We're never going to be the same. But as I tell Jackie, and she knows this, is I feel like I was broken, completely open, like, was
Mhm,
shattered and open, not only, and I wanted to be open to what God had for me. Please help me see this. And seeing the autopsy and knowing my son had a very healthy heart and a healthy liver and a healthy kidney, and he died from fentanyl poisoning, and they even said the contents of his stomach were like fruits and vegetables. So, so
hmm.
you think to yourself and you see all these things and all these pieces, but I had to just push that aside. It's hard to read if you haven't gotten there, but I mean, it's edifying in the sense that, okay, there's a reason now why they died, or if you're not sure, um, but no one wants to hear any of that stuff. But for me,
No.
held in darkness was the screaming. For me, was very real. Like, I didn't say it out
Mhm.
loud, but I'd be like in the car going, "Oh, what's going, please."
Yeah.
And it came to me, and I don't do that anymore, really. There are moments, when I'll say, "Please walk me through this because I can't do this alone, and I don't want to think this way anymore. Please be my feet right now, because, or be my hands."
Let's
I
address that for a minute. Like,
Mhm.
so you said, "I don't really do that so much anymore," and,
Well,
people well, no, and I wanna say, and I will
well,
let you.
not in that,
No, no, no,
not as
not
much,
to that
right?
degree, but
Correct,
what I
correct.
love is that and then somebody will say, "Well, why don't you or I do
Mm,
that anymore? And why is it different now?" And I just wanna
mm,
say this to those of you that have just lost a child, or it's been just in the last couple years and you're still having those really,
mm,
like, moments that we're talking about, like the lamenting and just wailing, right? And
mm,
but as the time goes on, it's because well, I'd like to think it's because your relationship with Jesus
mhm.
gets stronger and stronger, and if you live expectantly of what it is that he's going to do in your life, it becomes clearer and clearer, and you can hear his still small voice. You can hear the whisper of what he's saying, "I got this.
Yeah,
Go
and
this way."
right. Well, I don't mean to interrupt, but I think it becomes more of a conversation, because
Mhm.
I'm tuned in and I say, Yeah, and I think you have to find that space where, I have my my backyard and my birds and stuff, and I'll just, having that moment, and it may not even be in that space, but I have that conversation, with him, and just, what do I do about this, and where are we going with this?
Mhm.
Or even if I don't want to, a lot of times there's no answer right there. It's just a matter of expressing whatever that concern is, and then, allowing it to come at some point.
Yeah. Yeah, so and you'll understand what we mean as time goes on and as you decide to, just again, like Lisa said, break open to when we break there's a difference between being broken and there's a bit difference between being broken open
Right.
because when broken open, it's saying, Lord, fill us with you. When we're broken,
Hmm.
sometimes we do this
Yeah.
and
Right.
we don't want anything. We're just like
Right.
we're broken, and sometimes it's too hard to seek out what it is that the Lord wants us. But if we're broken open, Lord, please
Yeah.
fill us with you, fill us with you, so we know. We've got quite a few
Yeah.
comments here. Kellyanne, a lot of these women are saying I did the same thing with the autopsy.
Hmm.
Hi, Tammy. My heart goes out to you, both of you. Rebecca, yes, the death certificate reason for death was horrible. You guys, yeah, the autopsy was a very difficult part. Yeah, and Debbie, preparing yourself for when
Yeah.
you get it. Please wait, Debbie, because I know personally that this has just been recent. So yeah,
It
just
takes a little
breathe.
while, and we should never have to read that, right? That's not something anybody
I,
ever wants to
I
have to read.
mean, it's one thing when somebody says, to go through the loss of a child, and then we well, I guess we could say we have the choice
Hmm.
to whether or not we can read it, and this is something I want to bring up
That's
too,
true.
is
That is true.
if you feel as though there's something that is just undeniably just pulling that you have to read this, you have to have this answer,
Mm,
then but still pray about it because sometimes God is gonna protect you
right.
from like, I know that the Lord wanted to protect me from not seeing what I read.
Right.
I don't know, like, literally, I was not looking for anything else other than if he had drugs in his system. And
Right.
how because this was
Mm,
it was a report because it was
okay.
an investigation in Denver or in, Colorado and in Wyoming and through the Air Force. So,
Oh, wow.
there's 3 different investigations that were in this big booklet.
Mm,
And I know that Larry had just said, "Please don't, just don't, just don't
mm,
go through there." But for myself, I felt like I needed to, and maybe the Lord didn't want me to go through it.
mm,
And then he was like showing me, but at the end of the day, I I think that was a place for me to just get it all out.
right.
And then you know what? I guess instantly what I thought about, if you want to have a visual, is that in the moment of where I was visualizing what I read, in that like moments after, this Kristen prayed with me, I pictured him as whole in heaven
Mm,
versus the opposite of what I
right.
just read.
Right. For sure. Yeah.
I visualized him being whole in heaven and happy and
Yeah.
probably saying, "Mom, why are you reading that? Ugh,"
Mm.
as our sons or daughters would probably do.
Well, and in that regard, I mean, this is a little morbid, but my son had an open casket, and we saw him, and the whole time I was just, kind of talking to him and thinking, and I kept hearing him or God or something that I'm not like that, Mom. I'm okay. I'm
Mm,
in another realm. I'm not. It's not me. That's not them anymore.
yeah.
So yeah, it's hard. It's
Yeah, I
not
mean,
something.
that you have these are the things as difficult as they are, is that we have to,
Mm,
seek ye first the kingdom.
right.
Seeking the kingdom in every situation and think, you know what? God does not want to see us suffer. He doesn't want us to be so saddened. He cries with us.
Right.
And just know that when you're crying out to him, he's crying alongside you. All right, then
Absolutely.
our last one is God's promise to Israel and Israel Isaiah 43, 1 through 3. And it says, "Do not fear, for I have redeemed you. I have called you by name. You are mine." So, in the midst of your darkness, your sadness, your depression, he says, I have redeemed you and I have called you by name. You are mine. He
Mm,
does not want you to stay in this place. Though not a literal whisper, those words carry the tone of one personal, reassuring, filled with hope. spoken to people in exile and despair.
Mm,
And I mean, I just think about remembering that again, no matter how dark it is. And will be sharing in my book, as I have just recently, about when I went through the depression and everything a couple shows ago,
mm,
and just intellectually knowing that the Lord was there, but not really experiencing or feeling him, but the people that he surrounded me with was evidence of him carrying me through all of that.
mm,
So he has called you by name. He has called you, Rebecca and Debbie and Christy and Tammy and Kellyanne and Lynn and Danielle and and Kathy and Jill. I'm just going to go through all of them, and Karen and Diane and Tammy, Tracy, all of you guys, Iris and Linda, on and on, and Rochelle. He's called you by name. And Lisa, he has called you by name. He knows every little detail. He knows how many hairs are on your head. So if you feel as though God has left you in the dark and that you are just in a hole, like you are in this abyss where don't think you're ever going to get out, what did Lisa say earlier?
mm,
That is coming straight from the pit of hell. That is not from God.
mm.
The enemy wants you to stay stuck in this place because he knows that your story is huge and is going to help so many people, right?
Right, I mean, and even if you can't think that far now, it's just a matter of that he doesn't want you to feel this any of those negative feelings of guilt, and I had this conversation earlier, as well, that, if you feel guilty, and guilt is just part and parcel of of grief. It's everybody, no matter if a child or someone has been sick for a long time, there's always well, I should have brought him to another doctor, a different hospital, if I only found out
Mm,
sooner. Addiction, or all the things, suicide, all the things that, and what do we say? Like, our time is written. And like you say, he knows the hairs on our head. He knows the day we're going to be born and the day we die. And if,
mhm.
unless you did something specifically, to cause you know what I'm saying? Like,
He even knows that.
yeah, yeah. I mean, that would be so, but the point is, you can't, if you're hearing that over and over, you have to stop it and just say, that's not from him. That's really not from him, because that's torture. That's torturing yourself here. And we call that the spindrift in this ministry. You're
Yep.
going on and on with these negative, dark thoughts. That's not where it's coming from. And I remember you saying that early on, Jackie, and I say it all the time. I'm going to have to, if I ever write my book, it's going to be, don't let the darkness hide your light. But it's so true. I think of that
Yeah.
often.
And what do you do in those moments? Well, in the book
Mm,
Resurfacing, when
right.
we talk about we give examples of spindrifts, and then we have a scripture. So,
Mm.
I'm one of those people that I don't care. I will write, on my bathroom mirror. I have written down, and I'm just gonna say it too, I've written out Ephesians 6:10 through 18, the armor of God. I've written that whole thing out on my mirror. I even drew a picture of a sword because it reminds me that when I get up in the morning that I'm not gonna leave the house unless I'm armored up, because especially with what we all do when we share our story, no matter if it's, doing Facebook Live or if it's just walking into a grocery store and sharing, we all are we are our saints, as we were talking
Mm,
about, because we love Jesus and we're sharing his story.
right.
And so, but you have to have a scripture. When I say you have to,
Mm-mm.
invite yourself in to find a scripture because they have so much like leverage in your life when you can come up with something. And one of my earlier ones was being confident of this, that he who began the good work in you will complete it until the day of Christ
Mm.
Jesus, Philippians 1 1 through 6.
Yeah.
So when you hear something like that, it's reminding you that, "Oh, wait a minute. He began a good work in me." He's not just gonna go, "Oh, I'm kinda tired of you wallowing around in your grief." He's not gonna do that. He's gonna
Mm-mm.
say, "I will complete it until the day that I come back." The question is, are you going to receive it?
Right.
Or are you going to just be like this and not allow him to come in? The moment you let him come in is when the healing is going to start to happen.
Yeah, and I like to add in, this is just a different perspective. Healing doesn't mean ever forgetting. We're never, ever, ever. Healing just means beginning
That's
to
right.
remember with more love than pain, because um, in some sense, you want to say, I'm never going to heal from this, which is kind of true in some senses, in the sense that you were changed forever. But the healing is what is when you begin to find purpose in this, if you begin to find light in this, as hard as that is.
Yeah,
And so it's hard to even put that into words. And I know Debbie says I'm working on it. You're so raw in your grief, Deb,
so
that,
wrong.
just taking it day by day, and just, if you can hear anything we're saying, great. But hopefully there's hope in our words, and that, God's got you, and he's holding you, and when it gets too much to bear, you just give it to him, and you say, I can't do this, can you take it?
Yeah,
Those are the things, and so I like to say, to what we pay attention to grows. And I know Jackie's always talked about this. So if you're saying those negative things, even if you say it to yourself quietly or out loud, you begin to believe it. So you have to kind of turn the script a little bit and say, he's got me, even if you don't believe it right now, or if you don't feel it right now. Just
mhm.
saying those things begins to manifest, I think, in your life. Don't you agree?
Yeah, well, and actually, the silly saying to go along with that is "fake it till you make it," right?
Right. Yeah.
But, just walking in faith is really what the spiritual version is of that. And I wanna say, as we were referring to part of the healing
Hmm.
is I want you guys, just to take a moment and put in the comments. I'm just gonna ask you this simple question, is that, do you get outside?
Right.
Do you really allow yourself to get outside? I don't care if it's
Hmm.
a walk or if it's, whatever you're gonna just sit in a chair out in your
Hmm.
backyard. Just do you get outside? Just put in in the comments yes or no. I I want to, but whatever your reason is in there.
Yeah.
I have to say, again, not everybody loves to mountain bike. I love to mountain bike. And today it seems like mine and Lisa's days start off kind of like off a little bit. And I was like, I could just feel because I have, well, of course, Facebook Live tonight, but we're preparing for a retreat. And these are all labor of love. Like, I love all this. I love all these things that you guys are putting in here. Yes. And in the middle of like, not even in the middle, I'm towards the end of getting my story put into book version, all the things that are happening right now. And I just thought, I've got to stop.
Mm.
All of those things are still going to be there when I come back, but if I don't take 2 hours to go outside and do what it is that I love, and by the way, you said the things that we love to do are gonna be in heaven.
Mm.
Mountain biking is gonna be in heaven, just saying.
Right.
I'm gonna come back to you guys, your comments.
Mm.
But the moment that my wheels hit the dirt and I just start feeling the wind in my face and looking at the pine trees and the leaves on the ground that I'm rolling over, it all just starts to dissipate and I can just
Mm.
start breathing. And then all the work that I was gonna try to accomplish for the day would have not happened because I would have not been able to get. It's the self-care part of us that we miss out. Okay, let's come back, let me hear. Brr, let's scroll back up here.
Before
Uh,
before you do that, I just wanna say I remember how striking that was when you said that to me. I remember thinking, "Oh my goodness, I haven't been out in, like, 3 days." Like, I was
mm,
frozen and in the house, and it was summertime, and I thought, "Okay, I'm gonna go outside." As simple as that
it is
it was
really
just, like, so refreshing to do. So,
it is. I mean, it is what we're
the
not
ice.
supposed to be indoors all day. Okay,
No.
Iris is yes, and Iris, I know the hikes that you do, and we're gonna talk. Jill is yes every day. Vicky, I try. Vicky, we're gonna pray right now in Jesus' name that Vicky's gonna get out. When you say you try, it's just because something in your
Mm.
mind maybe is telling you that you do not give yourself that grace to get out there. Debbie, yes. Tracy, yes. Rochelle, I love to ride my bike. Yeah, girl. Christy, I try. Same thing, Christy. Karen, most days, beautiful. Kathy, most definitely. Tammy, yes, I enjoy sitting on my back porch, pray and talk to God. Amen. Get that vitamin D.
I
Trying to
I
do it, huh?
I just wanna jump in, I wanna respond to Vicky. She said, "Is that true? The things we love to do, we'll do in heaven." Listen, we don't really know, right? But the things that
Oh,
I've
I'm pretty
read,
sure.
the things that I've read, and I referred to John Burke's book, The God of Heaven, and it's mentioned in there, so, yeah, so maybe that is true.
I don't know scripturally where it says it, but I
I don't
feel
know.
that I've heard it someplace.
Yeah,
And why wouldn't he?
yeah.
I mean, because anyway, that's a whole other
Who
conversation.
knows? Who knows, right?
So
Anyway,
here, most
yeah.
days, Kathy, most definitely. Tammy, yes, I enjoy it. I got that. Rochelle trying to get out once a week. And Diane, your sons both love nature, but yes, so you get out too. I have to say, I love that when Randy was around, he used to always take his boys out and get Marseille out. And now Ryan and Mitchell get their families outside in nature and they do things all the time. And it just makes my heart so happy because I spent so much time doing that with them. Um, Rosemary, yes, most days. Lynn, yes. Oh, Lisa's bumping off. I went back to my dance classes and being in the studio. That's beautiful. Debbie, Vicky, yes. Yes, Eros, we will talk. So, yeah, I hope so. I can't play. Oh, I love that. Harps all day. No, that's not really what we're doing. Lisa, I don't know where you went. You're blue. So I'm just going to remove you and have you sign back on. Um, yeah, I don't know what happened when she's on here. So anyway, there is a percentage. I don't have the facts scientifically in front of me, but when we go outside, there's a percentage of our blood pressure that goes down. We have our cortisol levels are reduced. All the balances the hormones. It just it just ultimately just brings you closer to God. We can say all day long that we don't have time to do certain things. I will say that I've been wanting to finish taking guitar lessons for years. I initially played the drums with my sister. It was never oh, her computer just shut down. I was never able to play the drums like my sister is professional drummer, and because I was raising babies, but obviously music is in me like my dad that has is a musician as well. But so lately I've just been like, you know what? I'm just gonna start playing the guitar again. I take a lesson like once or twice a month and I make myself play because I know that when I'm done, I'm going to feel so much better, when I'm done doing it. As hard as it is for me to get there to sit in that chair to sit there and play, as hard as it is for you to get to put your feet in the barefoot in the grass or in the sand, it's called grounding. I've done many of those kind of things, but nonetheless, this is a part of your healing. I guess Lisa's maybe not coming back on because I guess she might have lost power. I'm not certain, but we're finished anyway. Thank you, Lisa, for coming on and sharing with all these things with me and bringing in the examples. So let's wrap this up by saying that God, when hope whispers in the midst of our times, we want to be held in darkness, and God holds us. God whispers to us. He gives us vision. Um, where's the other one here? Gives us vision. He hears us cry, and He calls us by name. But we just have to take the time to listen to him and to be still, which is so incredibly hard. But ladies, I just want to say hi, Linda, how much that you were loved and appreciated for being here and spending time with us every week. I'm going to end with this by saying November 1st, all the way till November 30th, we are having something called the Abundant Thanks Challenge. This is a big challenge that has been offered to us from a beautiful couple that said, this is the month of Thanksgiving, and we have been praying for the Lord. We've been really praying for Him to help us to bring in resources to be able to take care of all the things we have to spend in order to keep this ministry running. So, would you please join us for the month of November? Just whatever, I don't care if it's like a dollar. If you would join in this big challenge, this Abundant Thanks challenge for the month of November, you can go on our website, grievingmoms.com. This couple said whatever money that we bring in for the month of November, that they will double it, you guys. Do you know how many more moms that we could get in touch with by doing this? Do you know how much longer that we can continue to reach out to women around the world? We can pay for our website. We can pay for this platform here on Be Live. We can pay for all of the supplies that we need. We can pay for just everything that goes into this ministry. I mean, there's just a list of it, and you don't want to hear that list, but I am just really asking for a special blessing from you guys. I know that, everybody's in a tight place. Not everybody, but a lot of people can be in a tight place. So I just pray that you would ask the Lord if this is where you'd like to donate some money for this ministry. I don't like to talk about it, but I cannot not take advantage of this challenge that is being offered, because knowing that we will be able to have the finances to continue this gives me such joy, because this is what I do. This is what I do, and I know that the Lord just loves that we're doing this, because there's fruit in this ministry. We see it all the time. We hear the stories. And so I would just ask that you would contribute. Again, gravingmoms.com, from November 1st through November 30th. We will have our funds that come in doubled, you guys. That could mean a lot. Here, hold on, Lisa. So I was just finalizing with our, Abundant Thanks challenge that is happening in November. So, anyway, would your computer what happened to your
My
computer?
computer just shut off right in the middle. I have no idea. All of a sudden, it just went blank, and I just had to reboot, and here I am. I'm sorry.
No, no, it's
Sorry
okay.
about
We
that.
were we were finishing up. So, everybody
Okay.
that is here, I genuinely wish that I could give you the
Mhm.
hugest hug. For those of you that are
Yeah.
gonna be at the retreat, I know that I'm gonna be able to do that at
Mhm.
least once, at least, and I know Lisa's gonna be there, and Jill's gonna or no, Jill, you're not gonna be there. Are you no, Jill's not are you gonna is Jill gonna be there? I forget. No, Linda's gonna
I
be
don't
there.
think so.
I don't
No.
know. I don't think so, but
I don't
nonetheless,
think so.
it's bad for me to even mention names about who's gonna be there or not. I know
Mhm.
Lynn's gonna be there, but, there's just a lot of exciting things going on in the
Mhm.
ministry, and all that, and to glorify God in the name of Jesus. So we will see you guys next week, and then I leave, Lisa leaves for the next day to go
Mhm.
to Phoenix, Arizona to
Woo!
conduct a retreat for 35 beautiful mamas. Like, I get so excited. Like, we're doing all the things now. You're welcome, Kellyanne. All the things that have to be done now. This is not the part that I like name tags, and we have to print out this and do all that kind of stuff. But then when I get there, it's like, it's like this amazing reunion of most of the moms I know, and then just getting to get excited about what Jesus is gonna do with these women for that weekend. Right, Lisa?
Right.
Because
Oh,
you've been to
absolutely.
many.
Well, yeah, they call me the grief junkie or whatever you call me. I don't know.
The retreat
The
junkie.
re not the grief junkie. Oh, that was a Freudian slip there. The retreat.
Oh,
Oh,
no,
boy, boy,
you
boy.
are a
I think
retreat.
it's
It has been a
getting
day.
late here on the East Coast. Anyway, it has been
It's
a day.
all good.
No, but the retreat
It is
the
all good.
retreat
So you
groupie,
guys, if
the
you
retreat
you groupie.
groupie.
So get outside. You guys just get outside. I can't tell you what that has done for me and so many of the women. Just get outside, and if you do that, you just know. So you could come up with
Oh,
a million
goodness.
excuses
Yeah.
as to why that you can't do it. So blessings to everybody, and you are
Yeah.
loved, and you're gonna be okay.
You could
It's
be
gonna be
okay.
okay. Yeah.
One day at a time.
See you guys next week.
Okay, thank you.